empowering minds, amplifying voices, and transforming lives. This is the Untold Stories of Hope podcast, brought to you by the Destiny Connect Foundation. Your hosts, Zion Enogeu and Puffy Medupe.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Abushin and Saniwanani, bonjour, wherever you are all over the world. This is another exciting episode of Untold Stories of Hope podcast, brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. And we are really excited to be with you today. It's a beautiful day. I don't know, wherever you are, I believe that you've got some positivity going on in your life. My name is Puffy Medupe, all the way from South Africa, and I'm your host for this podcast for today. And we've got a lot of exciting knowledge and wisdom that we want to share with you. I mean, this is very important to know that we empower minds, we amplify voices, and we also transform lives. That is the purpose and the mission of this podcast. And that is why every time we call on to everyone to say, look, if you feel that you've got this untold story, come bring it on this platform so that we can be able to share it with the world. I'm now here today, and I'm enjoying myself because I have a lovely guest, who's gonna, introduce himself shortly. But if you want to follow the podcast, you can say destinyconnectfoundation.org. That's our website, or you can visit our social media pages, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Become part of Destiny Connect Foundation community. And I'm definitely sure that you're gonna love it. And we've been receiving a lot of great reports in terms of episodes that have been airing. And there's a lot of people who are saying, look, Puffy, this thing is doing so much positivity for the globe. And we're really excited. Thank you to the DCF community and DCF team for putting up this great initiative. Today, we are talking about nothing other than, passion not being enough. What is passion? Strategic planning and leadership development, NPO. We're talking about non-profit organizations. And we have got an expert today. We've got an expert all the way from New York City, all the way from the United States. And he's here today to speak to us in terms of strategic planning and leadership development in non-profit organization. It is true that passion is not enough. Who is he? His name is David Rhode. And he's quite an interesting man. I had quite a few minutes to engage with him. And believe you me, everything he said, I can resonate with it. I felt excited. I can't wait to ask him questions. He's a coach and a mentor to non-profit organization leaders, which is interesting. He provides guidance and board development. He does partnership development, strategic planning, specifically for non-profit organizations. And he's also doing non-profit branding and consulting at the University of Pennsylvania. And he's going to tell us more about it in terms of the great work that he's doing. Hey, Mr. David, welcome to Untold Stories of Hope podcast, and Destiny Connect Foundation is welcoming you.
It's so great to be with you. The world is, it gets to be a much smaller place when we can connect through the internet. And I'm delighted to be here today and have this conversation.
And I'm really excited because I know that all of our viewers, all over the world, they are excited to hear, more from you about nonprofit. This is one of the most, overlooked, positive initiatives, that the world can ever receive. We're talking about social impact. We're talking about, impacting humanity. This is what we believe in Destiny Connect Foundation, that we impact the lives of humanity. Now, as we are jumping into this topic, can you recall a moment when your passion alone almost led you to a burnout or failure? And what did that experience teach you about the importance of strategy?
Yeah, I was a nonprofit founder, like so many of the leaders that are probably part of your community. I started an organization in 2005, and I was very passionate about the issue that I was engaged with. But I think fundamentally where I, my first mistake as a young leader was in the creation of my founding board. I really didn't have a strategic approach doing that. I didn't have clear expectations for my board members. It was a lot of friends and family. And these are stories and things that we all are very familiar with. And it doesn't mean that there's anything necessarily wrong with doing that. But for the organization to be successful over the long term, to be sustainable and to grow and to attract a lot of resources, board members need to understand what's expected of them. And I don't think as a young leader, I did a particularly good job of that. And so that was something that I wish I had a chance to do differently. And wish I had somebody sitting on my shoulder to give me guidance in the early days as I undertook that process. So I think that was really the area where my passion sort of let me down. I was too excited to say yes to people. When they said, "Oh, I'll join your board, I'll help you," instead of me taking the time to explain, "Well, that's really nice, but do you understand what this involves?" and really laying it out more clearly for them. And that's a process that it took me a little bit of time to understand, and that's why I was able to be successful in recruiting a more professional board, a more national board. But it took several years to kind of go through that process of redoing things.
Man, you are speaking something that many people are struggling with. I mean, they are struggling with the same thing. I mean, most of the time when the vision begins, most of the people will run for family, close friends. Some of the times it brings a lot of compromise. And you've been doing this for 15 years. This is powerful because you've been doing this for 15 years. Tell us about some of the organizations that you worked with, the kind of impact that you have caused in these organizations, and what were some of the things that really they struggled with that you have analyzed and brought in, as a database to say, okay, I've realized that this is where most NPOs are failing and this is where they cannot get it right. We've heard about your experience, but we know there are other experiences as well.
Sure. I mean, I do a lot of, the last 5 years has been, a lot of consulting, both through my own consulting practice, which is .org, and then through an organization I work with called PennPAC, where we help organizations all around the United States and in some situations around the world with our strategic consulting. And, those conversations that I've had became the foundation for the book itself, because what I was hearing, Puffy, over and over again, were the same stories, the same challenges, and the same solutions kept making sense to those owners. So it felt to me that one of the ways that I could scale my impact was to commit to writing the book and putting everything together. So the way the book is organized, there's the first chapter is on strategic planning. The second chapter is on building your board. The third chapter is on fundraising. The fourth chapter is on partnership development. And it goes on like that for the first 15 chapters, taking the job of the executive director or the CEO, breaking it down into its component parts, and really creating a way for somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of experience or is not really sure how to navigate, giving them a game plan, or even sometimes just the right questions to ask so they could be more informed and more successful. So, there's countless organizations that I work with, but, the main challenges that they were coming to me with were strategic planning, board development, and fundraising. And that's why those are the first 3 chapters of the book, because those were the most common problems people were facing. And so I wanted to address those right away when people started reading the book.
That's amazing. David, I can see that you are passionate about this. It's true that everyone is called for something, and you are the first person that I meet who really has passion to help other nonprofit organizations, because it has been taken so lightly. What was the most heartbreaking challenge you faced as a nonprofit leader, and how did strategic planning help you to rise above that challenge?
The most heartbreaking challenge I faced as a leader, I think it's just the notion of not having enough resources to be able to help as many people as you want. And so, we are, in many situations, we want to do everything we can to help the people that we're trying to serve, but we also have to be mindful of the fact that we have a very small team. We have a very small budget in many situations. In the United States, 92% of the nonprofit organizations have budgets of $1 million or less, which means they have a team of maybe 3 or 4 people that are leading the entire organization. And so in those situations, what I felt it was my job, my responsibility was to try to attract more resources to grow our team so we could help more people. So our strategic plan really focused around how to increase the capacity of the organization through partnership development, how to grow our board to become more successful and be very intentional about who we were trying to attract in terms of doing that. And those were the two pieces of the puzzle that we focused on as an organization to lift us up so that we could help more people.
That's very much, powerful in terms of, organizations showing up and being able to develop other organizations, because now we are talking about growth. How many organizations now are there, and they are all looking at what is it that we can learn from, managing or having non-profit organization. This is Untold Stories of Hope podcast, brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. And my name is Puffy Midupi, and I'm your host all the way from South Africa. We're talking to David Rhode, who's an expert in terms of non-profit organization. And he's a man who really is going to teach us a lot in terms of running the organization from management level to the ground level of implementation. And we are talking about passion not being enough, but strategic planning and leadership development being the way to go. Now, David, tell me something. Have you ever felt like your vision was too big for the limited resources you had? Because most of the time, we have so many non-profit organizations, people will be saying, okay, I've got this vision, but I'm limited by resources. I cannot do this, I cannot do that. But I'm sure that for you to reach up to this point for the past 15 years or so, doing this non-profit work, how did you keep moving forward without losing hope, especially in those seasons when the resources didn't add up?
Right. I think we can always be, we can focus, we can have choices. We can focus on where we come up short, or we can focus on our successes. And I think as an organization, it was important for us to focus on all of the wonderful things that we were accomplishing, and not necessarily focus specifically on the negative side of what we couldn't accomplish. We were helping more and more people. Our organization gave young boys and girls access to playing baseball and softball here in the United States and around the world by donating equipment. We did that in over 100 countries around the world, including South Africa. And we did that all throughout the United States. And so while there were challenges, and a lot of times the challenges we faced were logistical, we wanted to help somebody. What we didn't know the most economical way or the most affordable way to get our equipment all the way from the United States to wherever they were, as far away as they were. So we had to work a lot behind the scenes to make that happen. But I think organizations can become a little too worried about all of the things that are out there. And I think sometimes we'd be better served to focus on what do we do really well? How are we impacting our community? And yes, sometimes the problem is so big, it can become a little overwhelming, but I think we should focus on what are we doing? How can we impact the group of people we're trying to in a positive way, and understand that if we do that exceptionally well, then we'll be able to attract more resources, and then we'll be able to grow, and then we'll be able to increase our impact. But it's not going to happen overnight, and we have to have a certain level of patience. And that was hard for me because I'm I'm an impatient person. I wanted things to happen right away. But I think we have to understand, especially in the early days, that we need to show results. We need to prove to people that we are capable of doing and making the kind of change that we're hoping to make. And that just takes time. Sometimes it's 2 to 3 years before you have, enough data to demonstrate to funders, demonstrate to partners that you're for real. There's a lot of organizations that come and go, and funders are conservative. They want to make sure they're supporting an organization that's going to be around, that's going to be successful for the long term. And the longer you're around and the more results you can compile, then the more confidence they have that if they make an investment in you, it'll be a wise investment. So I think there's a certain amount of patience that's required. And that's difficult because we want to help people, and we want to help them now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody wants it now. I can't wait to read your book. I'm just looking at it now, in your background. Passion isn't enough, and I can't just wait, to get hold of your book and to see many other leaders having such a tool that can help them solve so many problems. I mean, it is information and knowledge that makes life easy for many people. Sometimes you even think people need resources, Some of the non-profit organizations, David, they get resources and they waste them, and they don't even know how to maximize them because the leadership is not properly trained. There's no strategic planning, there's no budgets, there's nothing. And I believe that it is people like yourself, really, who come into the picture and say, guys, look, here's a tool, here's a material that I can give you, and it can help you, run your vision, not run it to the ground, but run it to the sky. So, was there a turning point in your journey where you had to shift from being passionate to being a strategic leader? What did that shift cost you emotionally and mentally?
Well, I mean, I think it's not necessarily a moment in time. I think it's a gradual process. I think the most important thing to realize, when people think about nonprofit organizations, they think about the cause, and they think about it from sort of like a very emotional level. And that's okay. But, we are running a business.
They think about the pain and the suffering of it.
Right. But at the end of the day, we're running a business. And the objective of the business is to improve the lives of people, not to make more money. So even though we have a different objective for a nonprofit business, for an NGO, we are still running a business. And I think, every element of that requires a certain amount of skill, a certain amount of discipline, a certain amount of experience. And that's the other benefit of having a board that is very diverse in nature, is that if you don't have a certain set of skills, then either a member of your board will likely have those skills, or they will know somebody who has those skills, and they can bring those people in to help be a resource to the organization. So, I think a lot about leadership is really understanding maybe your own shortcomings, understanding what you don't know, and being humble enough to ask for help, and having that sort of that confidence that says, I'm not insecure when I'm asking for help. I'm just acknowledging the fact that I'm good here, here, and here, but I'm not as good here, here, and here, and I could really use some assistance. And people are normally very willing to provide that kind of assistance, because everybody wants to see a leader be successful to achieve the dreams that they're trying to. And so I think it's a situation where we have to be willing to put our hand in the air and say, I could use help in these areas. And many times that help will be able to help you grow as a leader and help you, your organization to accomplish what it's hoping to do.
David, you said these powerful words, and I think they've stood out for me. It's not about making money, but changing or impacting the lives of people. And I think that's where the turning point for many people would be. When we start looking at nonprofit organization as this, platform for us to just get wealthy and get money and buy cars and live a lavish lifestyle when other people are suffering. And I think it is something that really has struck some beautiful element in what you are saying. So it goes to something that you said earlier about how people take it emotionally. Especially when they think about NPOs, they think about it as a very difficult thing. There's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of delays, the struggle there and there. And people believe, like you said in one of your statements, that there are those who come and go. There are those who leave, the social impact non-profit organization department because they feel like it's not going to work. So have you ever, let's talk about your emotional state. What emotional toll does leadership take when there's no clear structure or plan in an organization? And how do you manage your feelings throughout the process?
Yeah, I think leaders that I've talked to, many of them suffer from burnout. Many of them feel kind of alone in their job. They wish there were people that could support them. And so I think one of the things that I encourage other leaders to do is to build their own network of other nonprofit leaders. Who can they talk to where they can get, share a concern or a challenge that they are facing so that they can get the knowledge and wisdom of a cohort of leaders. Maybe it's other leaders that are in their same community, or people that they meet at some kind of a conference, or people they meet through other webinars and events. But the fact is, we all need people we can talk to, so that we don't have all of the weight on our own shoulders. And I think leaders sometimes just take that weight and we own it, and it can wear us down over time. And I think we have to be, really mindful about self-care, and our own mental state, because if we're going to lead other people and we're going to lead them successfully, we need to be in a good frame of mind in order to do that. Of course, work can be hard from time to time. That's fine. But there's no perfect situation for anyone. But I think we need to remember that there are people that are willing to support us. We need to find people and build a cohort of people that can support us in that way on our emotional
and
side.
I love that.
And the second thing I think that we can do and we should do is remember to focus on the lives that we are changing, the people that we are helping. Because if we focus on that element, we will remind ourselves of the reason we got into this work, and it'll kind of, continually build us up, and help us get through the times that are more difficult. So, we can focus on the negative, or we can focus on the positive, and we can be intentional about that. And I think we need to be positive, and we need to surround ourselves with those memories and those stories of the people we're helping, so that we can continue to put ourselves out there and show up for the organization in the way that is most effective. And if we're feeling the pain and we're feeling all the struggle, it's going to take us down, and we're not going to be able to be there for other people.
Hey, people, if you've just joined us now, this is Untold Stories of Hope podcast, brought to you by Destiny Connect Foundation. And I'm chilling with the extreme, powerful leader, David Rhode, all the way from New York City in the United States. And we are talking about non-profit organization. Man, passion is not enough alone. You need to have strategic planning and leadership development in non-profit organization. Look, I told you that if you want to follow this platform, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. This is Destiny Connect Foundation. Or you can even visit our website, destinyconnectfoundation.org, and you can be able to subscribe and become part of the community of this Untold Stories of Hope podcast. We are still here with David. I mean, there's a lot that we are still unpacking, and I know that he's a man of knowledge and wisdom. I mean, you spoke also about how many leaders in non-profit organization should be able to network, find people who do the same thing you are doing, and strengthen each other. I love that, David. And also reminding yourself, why are you doing this? This can instill that, excitement and the fire to keep going, especially when times becomes harder. I'm taking these notes, man. I'm taking all these nuggets. I'm learning, and I know that a lot of people who are watching this podcast now, they are also learning from everything you are saying. Now, let's talk about self-doubt in leadership. Have you ever doubted yourself, David, or your ability, doubted your ability to lead effectively? And how did you overcome and grow from that self-doubt?
I mean, I think we have doubts every day. I mean, you're part of, whether you call it imposter syndrome or you call it whatever you want, but, why am I the right person to be in this position at this moment in time? And, it's okay. I think it's okay. I'm always motivated personally, I'm motivated by fear. I'm motivated by the fear of not doing well, by the fear of letting other people down. And so I think sometimes having those doubts can drive you to focus more and to try to figure out and creative solutions to the problems that your organization is facing. I think we have doubts, and I think, we're going to make mistakes. Whether you're a parent or whether you're a leader of a nonprofit organization, we make mistakes all the time as people. So what happens when we make a mistake? We can learn from it, and we can become better and stronger the next time, or we can keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. So I think, as long as you are giving yourself the grace to make a mistake and learn from it, then it's okay to have doubts and it's okay to have questions. But, we're not going to get everything perfectly right. It's not a natural thought process. The world is very complicated. Things are changing all the time. Many things are out of our control. And so, we have to accept that. And then we just have to kind of understand, how can I make a difference? How can I show up? Where should I be putting my time and energy to try to move the organization ahead? Not just to head today, but as leaders, we need to be looking 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the road and putting our energy into those areas where we can lift the organization up and put it on a different trajectory. And sometimes dealing with all of the little crises that come up on a day-to-day basis, we can get distracted by that. And I think that's why strategic planning is so important, because strategic planning helps pick us up and helps us look down the road and give us the, the ability to kind of like work on the bigger problems, the bigger challenges. But, Puffy, doubt is part of the human condition. We're imperfect people. It's okay to have doubts. I think we should accept them and try to figure out, and give ourselves
and not run away from it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Like, we're not perfect people. If you have so much confidence and you don't have any doubts at all, then I think you're blind in many ways to things, and you won't take advice. You won't seek you won't seek help. So I think a balance is very fair and very normal.
Man, you said something powerful. You're the first person that I met who says they are motivated by fear. And you said it so positively that it also makes me to think, I'll keep thinking about it. And I believe it will also strike, my mind in terms of how can I get motivation, especially from things that I don't like when they approach me. I mean, who was the one person or that moment that made you realize that passion alone isn't enough? And how did that realization impact your leadership journey?
Well, I think as I grew over time as a leader, and then I started helping more and more other leaders, I saw myself in them. And when I would see a young leader coming into a situation, trying to grow their organization, it was a little bit easier for me to help somebody else than sometimes it is for you to even help yourself. You can see their problems more clearly. And even though they were very focused on the passion of their particular mission, I was able to step back and look at it sort of more objectively and give them the perspective and the experience that I had been through and try to translate it to them in a way that was going to be beneficial. So to me, this notion of passion and passion not being enough was really a process of observing other leaders, seeing the challenges they were going through, and being able to be sort of like, I could be a little bit less passionate, a little bit more objective when I was looking at somebody else's challenges than when I was dealing with my own. And that's when I realized that I could be helpful as a coach, because my experience was really benefiting other people. And so I just kept doing more of it and finding more personal satisfaction from helping others.
David, you've said a mouthful in terms of, all the aspects of nonprofit organization. But here's also one important question. What advice would you give to someone whose heart is in the right place, especially in nonprofit organization or serving humanity, but their vision is slowly crumbling due to lack of planning? What can you say to this kind of person?
Well, I would say that it is important for them to have a clear set of where they're trying to go. And that's really what a plan is all about. That's what a strategic plan is all about. It's saying 2 to 3 years from now, where do I want the organization to be? And what are the challenges, the hurdles, the obstacles that are in my way? And if you can narrow the list of things down and to those 1 or 2 things that you think will be the difference between moving forward or maybe continuing to struggle, then you can put your limited time and resources into solving those challenges. Sometimes we're running in this direction today, we're running in this direction tomorrow, then we're going over here the next day. And we're just kind of on a wheel and we're spinning and we're not making any progress. And so I think just having clear, focused ideas around where you want to go, which is kind of the essence of what strategic planning is, and then checking in, once a month or once every 3 months. How are we doing? Are we making progress? And where are the hurdles? And this is where your board comes into play, because this is not just you as the executive director. This is you in conversation with the board, saying this is where we want to go as an organization, and enlisting the help of others to get there. So, again, I think focus and discipline around how you spend your time. That is what we can choose to do every day as a leader. Like, where do we want to spend our time and how are we going to make a difference for the organization? We don't need to be the ones doing every little thing, whether it could be other staff members or other volunteers within the organization. We can train other people to do a lot of the day-to-day stuff. As leaders, we need to be thinking about the long-term success of the organization and how we're going to get from point A to point B. I think I lost you for a moment.
David, I'm with you just now. All right. So thank you so much for that, David. And I really appreciate, all the aspects, that you are mentioning, especially in terms of advising people on how to stay connected in the mission, because it's easy for someone to lose a plot of what they are supposed to do, especially in non-profit organization. But here's a question now that I want to ask you. How do you stay emotionally connected to your mission while navigating the hard strategic decisions that sometimes hurt in a short term? I mean, there are so many people who would rather run away from making short-term decisions, that are very impactful, but yet they're a bit painful, at this moment. But how do you navigate that?
Well, if we're going to choose to be a leader, then we're going to have to accept the fact that making decisions is part of the job. And not every one of those decisions is going to be completely popular. But if we can be transparent about how we made a decision, if we could explain the logic behind why we made this certain decision, we used to do these 3 programs. We've realized we're going to close one of these programs so that we can focus on the other 2. That would be a difficult decision because there's certain people that might be very connected to that one program that you were previously doing. But we've realized that it's costing us too much money to support this other program. And if we focused our energies on programs 1 and 2, we would be able to be a more successful organization and do whatever. That's just one example. But, I think that, as a leader, if you're not comfortable making decisions, if you're not comfortable making those hard calls, then this job is not for you. I mean, that is part of the deal. If you're going to lead an organization, you are going to, there's an expression, the buck stops here. The buck stops here means I've got to make the decision. I'm going to ask people. I'm going to get a lot of perspectives. I'm going to try to make the best decision I can make. But at the end of the day, someone has to make the hard calls. Yes. And if that is the leader, then you have to be willing to explain your decisions and say, I know this is something that might be unpopular with some people, but here's why we did what we did. And I hope you can understand that. And then you need to move on, tell the story the way you need to tell it, and then move past it. Because if we think we're going to make everybody happy with every single decision we make, we are wrong. There are always going to be people that are, you can't make all the people happy all the time. And that's just the nature of it. And you have to accept that. It can be frustrating. It can be disappointing because as people, we want to make other people happy. We don't want to hurt other people's feelings. We don't want to make other people disappointed. But, when you're the leader, you have to be willing to put yourself out there in a way that says, I've made this decision and stand behind it.
Man, that is amazing. We are about to, wrap up, the podcast. And I think, David, everything that you have said, someone out there is watching now, listening, and I'm sure they are about to do things differently, especially compared to, lack of knowledge and not doing things accordingly. And if you could go back to the start of your nonprofit journey, what would you whisper to the your younger self about leadership, clarity, and vision? Because normally, I believe that since you have done this for quite some time, and, you made a lot of mistakes, obviously, and you said we shouldn't be afraid of that. making wrong decisions. It happens sometimes, miscalculations, lack of strategic planning. But what advice would you give to your younger self, now, looking back at where you started? And I believe your younger self, someone is that younger at this point, and they're starting the thing that you've started way back.
Well, I think I would, if I could whisper to myself, I would tell myself to be more patient. And I think I would also tell myself that I was always focused on the next program or the next donor and the next partner. And what I would have probably wanted to do a better job of was appreciating and recognizing the people that were currently supporting the organization. And instead of, you thank them one time and then you move on to the other thing. And I think, one of the things that I've learned obviously is we need to do a better job of telling the people that are currently supporting the organization of the impact that they are having by being a supporter and sharing the stories and the success. And so I think for me, I would have done a better job of nurturing those relationships more strongly for the current donors than the current partners. I think it was too easy for me once somebody came into the family and became a supporter to kind of go, great, now let me go get the next person. Now let me go get the next person. And I think as donors and as leaders, I think we need to really thank our current donors over and over and over again, so that they don't just support us one time. They support us again and again and again in the future. And so I would love to have been, I wish somebody would have told me that, so that I would have paid more attention to that initially, because I don't think I was particularly good at that. And I wish I had done a better job in the early days.
I have so many nuggets and things that I've really taken, we call them takeaways here in South Africa. I've got so many takeaways. You said something that resonated with me. It's not about money, but it's about the lives that you are impacting. And when you spoke earlier, in terms of how to stay connected, even emotionally and everything, advising leaders to find a network of people doing what they are doing so that they can also strengthen each other. I mean, it's one of those things that stood out for me, and many, 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 many other things, that stood out for me. David, there's someone out there right now watching this podcast, all over the world. There's a young person with passion. There's someone with an organization. They feel like they've been doing this for so long. They feel like they've tried everything. Someone is at the edge or the verge of giving up, and they feel like, what, I have this dream. I really want to pursue this vision, but it has exhausted me, and I think I want to let go. What would you say to someone who just wants to let go and not try again?
Well, there's a couple of answers. One is it's okay to find somebody to replace you. If the idea and the organization is valid, there are other people that can take over your role as the leader, then maybe your focus is on finding that successor and bringing them in and getting them comfortable so that you can step back. You've done this great job. You've gotten the organization off the ground. You've gotten it to this point. Maybe somebody is the right person to take it forward. So maybe that is reasonable. But if you do want to stick it out, and so many people should, they have to kind of work through those difficult moments. I think it's, again, going back and even sometimes just speaking one-on-one to the people that are benefiting from your program. If you can go speak to the people that are benefiting your program, you will remind yourself why you got into this work. You will see those lives, and you'll be able to tell those stories to other people, and you'll be able to grow the organization. So, it's all about impact. And if we can remind ourselves of the positive impact we are having, I think we will be able to kind of sort of create that fire in ourselves to kind of work through the challenges. And so, but if stepping aside is the right answer, that's okay. Do it thoughtfully, maybe find your successor, coach them, support them so that they can carry it forward. Or if you're going to stay, maybe you need to just focus again on why you got into the work, talk to the people benefiting from your program, understand how the lives are being changed, and that might, remind you why you got into this work in the first place.
How can people contact you? Social media, emails?
Yeah, people can contact me through LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to find me, David Rhode, Rhode. And they will see all kinds of conversation about the book, Passion Isn't Enough, so they'll know they found the right person. That's the easiest way. Or my website for my consultancy, which is .org.com. And if they go to that website, they can reach out to me through that, and we can set up a conversation from there.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone who are watching this podcast, we have an amazing David Rhode all the way from New York City. I mean, we're talking here about passion isn't enough. You know, we need strategic planning and leadership development in non-profit organization. We thank you so much for coming in today. We told you that if you want to be part of this podcast, you can always say destinyconnectfoundation.org or visit us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, Destiny Connect Foundation. And we are able to give you a platform so that you can share an untold story of hope that can help someone to find that hope so that they can stand up, rise up, and keep walking. And you always, I'm not alone. Today, Mr. Zion and Ogeru is not here, and Omoye, they are also not here, but I will be driving this thing, and I've driven it so well. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank David Rhode for being available in this minute, you know, on behalf of the globe, on people who are willing to get a new thing. David, thank you so much for joining us, and we are wishing you all the best with your book, you know, with your work in nonprofit organization, with your family and everything we do. May you be successful in all that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much. Till we meet in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Untold Stories of Hope podcast. We hope you enjoyed and you were inspired by today's conversation. Remember, you can get more access to resources plus join a thriving global community of change makers by visiting our website at destinyconnectfoundation.org. Please subscribe to our channel and spread the word. Don't forget to turn the notification on. Until next time, keep inspiring your world.